In this tutorial you'll get to create a telephone handset, the same as this one here. This exercise will give you experience using the shell command, using multi-bodied parts, and using the split command. Right, what we're going to do first is we're going to create a sketch on the front plane, and we're going to create some construction geometry to frame our first sketch. So using the center rectangle tool, draw a center rectangle from the origin, centered on the origin, and make sure you click for construction to turn it into just construction geometry. Then do another one a bit smaller, and again select construction for construction. And what we're going to do next is to put some dimensions on these rectangles. So the larger one is going to be 45 millimeters wide by 25 high, and the smaller one's going to be 40 wide by 20 high. Okay, so it should look something like that. What we're going to do next is use the 3-point arc tool. So we're going to start on the corner, top left hand corner of the small rectangle, to the top right hand corner, and create an arc there, make a similar arc on the side, and then we're just going to make this arc and that horizontal line tangent. So we're making the arcs tangent with the larger rectangle, and then we can do the same on the other side, or what's a little bit easier is to put in a horizontal and a vertical construction line and just use those to mirror the arcs to the other side. That way everything stays nice and symmetrical and there's no errors. Next thing we're going to do is put some fillets in the corners. So we're going to use a 5mm diameter fillet, just clicking on the corners between the two arcs, and that's the shape we want. Now you can see that the great thing about doing it this way is that it's very easy to alter the size. We just change the size of the rectangles, and don't bother doing this, but very simply the size of the shape or after changes. Okay, the last thing we're going to do is to create another center line, just horizontal, drawn below the sketch. We're just going to put a dimension on that from the origin to that point, and we're going to make that 200 millimeters. Now we're going to use that bit of construction geometry as an axis of rotation, because next we're going to make a boss revolve, and we're going to select that line here as the axis of revolution, and we're going to revolve that through 15 degrees. So it should look something like that now. The next thing we're going to do is create an end cap to this revolve, and the way we're going to do that is to create a sketch on the end face, and we're going to convert entities to use the edge of that face, create a center line from the origin going vertically, and then create a normal line from the midpoint to midpoint, and then we trim one side of the profile away, and so it should look something like that. Now we can do a revolve boss base. There's only one center line in there, so it knows which one to use. Hit OK, and now we have the end to the handset. What I'm doing here is I'm creating just one side first, and then I'm going to use just to mirror that so that we have a nice symmetrical part. Right. So next we're going to create the part with the loudspeaker in it, And to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to use some of the geometry that's actually created in this first sketch. So we're going to create a plane at an angle, and the easiest way of doing that is to show the plane. So you right click on the sketch and just go to show. I'll also do the same thing with the top plane because that'll make it fairly easy. So what we're going to do is we're going to create another plane at an angle, and to do that all we need to do is to select a plane and a line that we're going to use as a point for to set the second plane up from. So if we go to Insert Reference Geometry Plane, because we've selected that line and the plane, all we have to do is just go and tell we want to create an angle. Now, because the revolve was through 15 degrees, this plane also wants to be 15 degrees. Now you might find that it's looking like that, which is the wrong angle. We actually want to have it at this angle. So hit OK. Now we have a plane which I'll just drag it to make it a little bit larger because we're actually going to be drawing on this end of the plane, and that's at the right angle to the to where we want the loudspeaker to be. So selecting that plane, we create a sketch on the plane. Now the next thing we do is we're going to select this little edge here because that gives us a nice round edge to create our boss extrude onto. I'm just going to grab the end of that line and continue it on. Because it's actually a semicircle, and just turn it into a full circle. And then we'll go to boss extrude, and we could do blind, but let's just do up to next. And what we're also going to do here is we're going to add some draft. So we'll select that, click draft outwards, and about 15 degrees should be about right. Hit OK, and there we have our little boss. We're also going to put some fillets on it. So I'll put a fillet on this top surface first. Let's make that 2 mm. Let's make a slightly larger one in this corner between the microphone section and the main handpiece, and we'll make that one 3 mm. Right, so that's so now that we've got that, it's probably a good thing to just hide this sketch again. So right click on it, go to the little glasses and put hide. We can do the same thing with the plane, it just neatens things up. We'll do that with this plane too. So what we can do next is we can use this half and we can mirror it to create the second half. So if we go to mirror, now we can select the face or a plane. We'll just select this end face to mirror. Select the bodies to mirror, select the only body that's there, and we now have our part. Now at the moment that's a big solid lump of plastic, for example. What we need to do is we need to shell it out to create something that's a bit more realistic. So we go to the shell command, and in the parameters we want to have a 2 mm wall thickness, and we don't actually want to remove any faces. So we'll leave this the faces to remove button blank. Hit OK, and as you can see, nothing visually changes. But if we go to the section view command, we can see that it is in fact now hollow. Right. Now if this was a plastic manufactured, injection molded manufactured part, at the moment it would be pretty much impossible to manufacture. So what we need to do is to make it into two halves. Now we could make it like this in two halves and split the part vertically, and if we were to do that it would be quite easy to make, but it would have a split line, a part line. You'd see the two halves running down the middle of the handset, and for a variety of reasons that's not very good. It doesn't look good, and so on. So we really need to make it split this way. The trouble with doing that is that if we have a flat split like this, we end up with having undercuts in various sections of our part. So as you can see right here, there'd be an undercut in that section there, and all sorts of problems. So what we need to do is we need to have a curved split line. The difficulty is knowing where to put that curve. in reality the curve of the split line will be on the widest possible point. So what we're going to do next is we're going to use the split line command to split this part into two separate bodies. Now this is a little bit long-winded, a little bit convoluted, so it's important that you follow closely what I'm about to do, but it's an extremely useful technique, so it's worth learning. Alright, now what we do is we'll go to insert curve split line. To make matters a little bit complicated, there are two split type commands. There's a curve split line and there's a feature split, so it's worth noting that there's those two. So we're going to use the split line first. Now you've got a variety of types of split. We've got a silhouette, projection and intersection. We're just going to stick with the silhouette, and what that does is it takes a plane and it projects that plane onto the body, and whatever is a silhouette or seen as a silhouette from that plane, it'll draw a line around. So okay, hopefully that makes some sense. We're going to use the top plane, and if you imagine looking down on the top plane, the silhouette of the part is where that line is going to be drawn. It's going to be drawn on the part, but it's where that silhouette appears. We then need to select the faces that we want to have the silhouette taken from. So we want that face, we want this face, and we want that face. So hit OK, and what you'll see now is we have a line, this split line, that goes all the way around the part, and as you can see, it's curved here. As you'd expect, that's the widest point, and here it becomes horizontal because that's the widest point. So what do we do with this? Well, once we have that split line in place, we can then create another sketch on the right plane, and then we can use convert the split line, use convert entities to convert the split line to some construction geometry. Now unfortunately we can't use this bit of the split line because, as you see, it curves back on itself, and unfortunately that's just something that the software just isn't able to do. But what we know about this is that it's actually a horizontal line, so really it's actually quite easy just to put in a horizontal line like that, and as you can see, that's exactly where our split line goes. And we'll need to have that needs to extend beyond the part, so that it will, because we're going to use this line to cut the part into two halves. Once we have our split line in place, we can use the split command to create two solid bodies. So if we go to Insert, Features, Split, in the first box here it'll ask for a trim tool, and that trim tool is the sketch that we've just created. We then go to Cut Part. We tell it to cut it into two halves, and now if you roll your cursor over the top and the bottom, we've got these two halves. Now this results in two bodies. We can select those two bodies, and next to it it's got a place called File. If we just double click on that, what we can do is we can create two separate files made from those two solid bodies. So if we do the top one, we'll call that top, so save as, and the bottom one we'll call bottom, hit OK, and wait for a little while, and as you can see it just goes through and it's created two different parts. Now if we create a new assembly, what we can do is we can put those two new parts back into an assembly. So we'll select, because they're already open, we'll select the bottom, hit OK, go Insert Component, pull the top and bottom part the wrong way around, doesn't really matter. If you just hit OK, what it'll do is it'll just put those components over the origin, which is probably where you want them to be. It helps sometimes to change the colour of these parts so you can see which is which. And there you have the two different halves in your assembly. Okay, now what you can do next is you can then go and make an exploded view. So new exploded view, and you can then create an exploded view of your two parts. Of course, you can add extra components in there as well. So there you have it. That's the phone handset.